I used to think every church had a telescope. Ours sat on top of the old grain silo next to the gym, painted white like a moonbeam. Brother Marcus has built a platform from scrap and parts he traded for online. He said it could see Jupiter's stripes and even tunnels when the sky was right. I never saw them, the tunnels, but sometimes the stars shimmered just enough to make me believe he wasn't lying. Our school was the church. The church was the school. Mama said that's how it used to be long ago, when people still knew what mattered. We didn't have school bells or lockdown drills. We had prayers in the morning, chores after lunch, and lessons wrapped in stories. Sister Ellie taught us about plants and how to raise rabbits. Brother James showed us welding. Mr. George was a master carpenter who had everyone excited to work with their hands. Miss Stephanie, who used to be a scientist, said gravity was just God's way of keeping us close until we were ready to fly. At night, after the dishes were done and the little ones put to bed, the older kids would sneak up to the roof. You had to be quiet. Brother Thomas didn't like us out that late. But if you were lucky, you could catch one of the grown-ups talking about the moon project. They didn't think we listened. They said one day we'd go there, not just to visit, but to build, to worship, to live without fear. Some said it was a fool's dream. Others called it prophecy. All I knew was that the men and women I trusted most in the world were pointing their hearts and our lives up at the sky. I still remember the night Daddy said, "The world isn't our end, kiddo. It's just the beginning." He pointed up. The church is not bound to earth. For wherever we gather, He is with us. Chapter 2, The Ring of Homes. They said the church was the heart, and the village beat like a drum around it. We didn't have street names, just paths. The older kids called them rings, like the rings of Saturn, because every house, every garden, every alley bent toward the chapel at the center. You could stand on the roof of the bakery and see it all. The steeple that kissed the sky, the white farm fences circling like a drawn breath, and the houses clean, painted, loved like pearls on a string. This morning, we were late. "Go, go, go!" Micah shouted, grabbing my hand as we sprinted from his house. We darted past the berry vines between his gate and the crossfield path, hopping the irrigation ditch near Miss Clara's sunflowers. The bells were already ringing. That meant morning prayer was starting, and Sister Ellie would put us on kitchen duty if we slipped in late. As we passed the garden wall, the smell of rosemary and tomatoes soaked the air. Inside the stone fence, the church farm was waking. Brother Gordy was already lifting up buckets of feed for the hens. Beyond him, the orchard shimmered with dew, the peaches heavy and golden. Most of the fruit went to the food wagons on Fridays, but if you helped load crates, they let you eat while you worked. We cut through the stone arch that marked the southern commons, a wide indoor pavilion where families brought goods, traded stories, and baked too much on purpose. The marketplace opened early and always smelled like honey and firewood. We bolted past the baker, but not fast enough to miss the scent of cinnamon and a rising yeast. Brother Dale stepped outside with a tray and grinning tossed a steaming roll our way. It hit Micah in the chest, bouncing into my arms. "You're gonna be late," Brother Dale cackled at us. The roll was soft, warm, sticky with raisins and glazed sugar. We didn't stop running. We just tore it in half and stuffed pieces in our mouths. "Don't drop the raisins," Micah mumbled around his bite. The candy maker, old Mr. Loco, was already sweeping his storefront when he saw us coming. With a little chuckle, he tossed 2 paper sacks, each the size of a handkerchief, right into our arms. "Para después," he winked, "for later." We tucked the bags into our pockets without opening them. We already knew what was inside. Tiny fruit chews wrapped in clear film, caramels, and maybe, if we were lucky, one of his hard sugar stars that glittered like crystal. This town was different, not just because it was peaceful, but because every face belonged to someone who knew you, someone who loved you. Cousins ran the herb booth. Your great uncle might hammer shoes in the cobbler shop. Even the candy man used to babysit someone's dad. It was one big family. We slipped into the chapel just before Sister Ellie clapped. Micah smiled too wide. He was trying to charm her. She raised an eyebrow. "Kitchen duty," she said, not even waiting for us to sit down. Micah groaned. "Come on, Aunt Ellie." "Don't Aunt Ellie me," she said with a smirk. "You show up late. You stir the soup." We laughed, because everyone knew kitchen duty wasn't really a punishment unless you were stuck on dishtail. Even then, you still got to sneak bites of lunch while pretending to scrub. We took our seats for prayer, the scent of cinnamon still hanging on our fingers. Prayer ended with a soft echo of Amen, and Sister Ellie motioned for us to follow her to the reading room, a sunlit space off the chapel with long benches, wide windows, and old wooden shelves. This wasn't a classroom, it was a place of memory. She placed a thick book on the table, its cover bound in soft leather, edges worn from use. "The Anthology of Clan Roll," she said, and the room hushed. Micah nudged me. "Your clan." I rolled my eyes, but he wasn't wrong. Sister Ellie turned a page, then looked up at us. "Who here remembers who our district head is?" Hand shot up. "Yes, Ezra," she said, glancing my way. "Patriarch Lemuel," I answered. "He's my grandfather's brother." "Correct," she said. "Who governs the next district over?" Micah raised his hand. "That's Matron Sarah of Clan Avaya. She grows the seed vaults and oversees apprenticeships in food science." Sister Ellie smiled. "Very good. Keep your arc synced. These relationships matter." Someone tapped their arc. No one needed to see the display. We all knew what it would show. Family trees like rivers, maps with names like constellations, histories that stretched back generations. 12 clans, 12 pillars. "These records remind us that no one stands alone," she said. "We are branches of the same root. What one forgets, the others must remember." She read aloud from a section near the front, an early record of the Raoul's line founding, their migration across 3 continents, their rise as textile makers, and their eventual uniting with the Syndicate for one purpose: to carry the gospel into the heavens by skill and sacrifice alike. Outside, I could see apprentices walking by the window, teens barely older than us. One wore a builder's harness. Another held a data pad, trailing an agronomist. It was normal to start at 13. You didn't wait for permission. You learned by doing. Micah leaned over, whispering, "Think she's going to read the part about the moon pledge?" I shook my head. "That's history class." "Boring history." Sister Ellie looked up sharply. "Micah." He grinned. "Sorry, Aunt Ellie." She raised a brow. "Kitchen duty. Again. And the dishes this time." The class groaned in sympathy. Sister Ellie closed the book with a soft thump, and the dust and the sunbeams danced like fireflies. She looked at each of us for a moment, not just as students, but as children she'd known since we were born. That's how it worked here. No one was anonymous. "There will be an announcement later this week," she said, voice even. Chairs cracked as a few kids straightened up. Micah tilted his head. "What kind of announcement?" someone asked. But she didn't answer right away. Instead, she smiled, faintly, and began to gather the papers she'd set aside for us. Pages to copy, names to trace, routes to remember. "Just pay attention," she said, "and be ready. Not everything comes by arc alert. That made a few kids whisper. Something was coming. I looked at Micah. He raised his eyebrows like he knew exactly what it was. He didn't. Sister Ellie handed out the copies and waved us toward the back tables. As we walked, I looked again out the window, past the garden rows, the orchard line, the ring of houses, and endless fields beyond. The world felt familiar, but suddenly not small.